Hello, and welcome to the Big Boss Theory, where I listen to and analyze the music of video games. This is part 2 of the series analyzing the music of Super Metroid. In the first episode, we looked at the more minimal and atmospheric themes. In this episode, we're looking at the more classic Metroid themes. So join me as we discuss how and why the music of Super Metroid worked so well. It was a memorable experience for me when I first heard this theme kick in during the game. The theme fades in when you enter the area. Now, this might not seem like much, but hearing a Super Nintendo game from 1994 do this at just the perfect time was an unexpected thing to hear. You see, up to this point, the music in the game had mostly been just eerie and vague ambient tones, a lot of the tunes we looked at in the last video actually, and there had never really been a very strong or consistent pulse. That was until now, until this theme hits. The opening marimba arpeggio immediately sets a different tone for the game at this juncture, and the repeating snare hit on the backbeat of the bar gives the tune a little more attitude where before it had all been just atmosphere. And the syncopated electric bass tones really give the tune a rock edge, or at least as much as can be allowed in a Metroid game like this. And while this tune may veer closer to rock music than any other tune in the game, it still remains quite ethereal and haunting. The choir tones make an appearance, and in the B section of the piece, the mode of Phrygian shows up. These are both things that we've become pretty familiar with in the game by this point. This theme is probably the most developed theme in the game, and it's certainly one of the most memorable. The way it juggles both the familiar ominous vibe of the game with a more rock-like style makes it one of the standout tracks of the entire game, or even the entire series for that matter. Now this theme has become a mainstay in the Metroid series, being used in many of the later games. It also typically serves as the boss Ridley's theme. It gets used in Super Metroid both times when you fight Ridley, and it's also used in Metroid Prime when you fight Meta Ridley. So, in the theme, let's first talk about the rhythm here, since it's quite important to the piece. Because this theme is quite fast, I hear the main pulse consisting of 5 beats. Thus I hear this tune in 5/4. However, these beats are divided into 2 separate phrases, so if you split the 5/4 pattern up by its eighth notes, you get a group of 6 eighth notes and 4 eighth notes. However, while both these numbers are even, the 6 eighth notes are divided into 2 sets of 3, while the 4 eighth notes at the end are divided into 2 groups of 2. This constant oscillation between the groups of 3 versus groups of 2s give the listener an unstable listening experience. If this theme sounds familiar to you, it's probably because it is. The rhythmic phrasing in this theme is the exact rhythmic phrasing used in the theme to Mission Impossible. Both themes use the same 5/4 meter, and they divide it the exact same way. They're also both pretty intense themes. The intensity comes from that instability of the grouping of 3 versus the grouping of 2. And in the Metroid theme, the mode of Phrygian adds even more tension to this piece. This makes it the perfect candidate to double not only as the boss theme, but the final escape theme as well in the game. This ominous theme sets itself up perfectly when you first hear it. While this area up until now had contained only the slow, drudging theme of the upper Norfair area, when you reach the ancient ruins portion of the area, a strong pull centers. This is the exact same technique used when you reach the Brinstar overgrown area that I mentioned earlier in this video. The sudden flip from slow and ambient to fast and rhythmic gives the player a certain kind of rush. Just when you thought you were getting comfortable, you realize you're just getting started. This theme, like the big boss confrontation theme, has also become a classic in the Metroid series. It was reused in Metroid Prime as well, in the Magmar Caverns region. What makes it so memorable? Well, the opening is quite simple, but very effective. The half-step melody is reminiscent of John Williams' famous Jaws theme, but here we get a strong percussion hit on every beat. This makes the tune feel not only ominous, but urgent. The major third added in the minor key adds a ton of spice to the already engaging theme. And this tune builds and builds and builds. It adds more and more parts to the texture. When I say parts here, I'm really just saying different instruments. This build makes the theme even more thrilling. The technique of adding more instruments to thicken the texture is called layering. The composer J.S. Bach was known for doing this in quite a number of his pieces. Here in his piece Cantata 150, we hear each vocal part coming in one by one. This thickens the texture and really adds a certain amount of tension to it as well. However, this piece doesn't just add more and more instruments. The key constantly climbs up by a minor third throughout the entire piece. Hearing this piece modulate up a minor third over and over and over again really adds to the tension and gets your blood boiling. All these techniques were perfect to employ in this area when the game is really beginning to throw all it had at you. In this classic Metroid theme, the piece is in a strong Phrygian mode, with the bass oscillating between E and F. What's most interesting about this tune is that although the Phrygian mode creates a dark atmosphere, as we would expect in this game, the pentatonic scale in the arpeggio and main melody offers something a bit lighter. This creates a nice juxtaposition, which really offers a moving emotional experience for the player at this point in the game they hear it. This pentatonic melody is expanded later on in the piece, as we see here. Once again, this piece demonstrates how well this game uses simplicity to evoke a strong mood in the game. Thanks for watching The Big Boss Theory. If you liked what you heard today, hit the subscribe button. You can find full scores to all the pieces heard today in the description below, as well as a link to the artist who provided the amazing cover art. You can also check out my own video game music on the SoundCloud link below.